What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what Canadians think of Mark Carney so far. So I have to say, it's been very, very interesting seeing Canada choose an entirely new leader and somebody who's never even been a politician before, and basically somebody who had to come in and immediately deal with all of this crazy stuff. The United States deal with Donald Trump and the tariffs and the trade wars, and not to mention all the global conflicts going on right now. So, as an American, I only hear and see so much from my perspective about Canada. So, today, I really want to learn more about what Canadians think about Mark Carney so far. So, a good way to start, I think, is to take a look at his approval ratings and the polls right now. So, it says a recent Abacus data poll from August says his approval rating is around 50%, only 19% unfavorable. Now, this is going to change depending on what poll you're looking at, of course. But it says that he might have as high as a 64% approval rating, according to Liaison Strategies. So Mark Carney has something between a 50 or 64% approval rating, which sounds pretty positive, pretty like he has a lot of public support. Contrast that with Donald Trump in the United States. His approval rating is at what, 40%? Maybe 50 on some issues, but yeah, that lines up with what I've been hearing here in the United States, and I think the overall sentiment right now around Donald Trump, pretty low approval ratings right now, I would say. And sounds like Mark Carney's doing pretty well in Canada. So I want to take a look at some Reddit discussions and really take a look at some comments that Canadians are leaving, giving their opinion on Mark Carney. So I think this is a really cool opportunity for me to actually see what Canadians are really saying about the guy. So since Mark Carney became prime minister, how do you think he's faring as a first-time politician? Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of forgot that he isn't a career politician, because all the stuff I've seen of him on the news and on YouTube, he's pretty darn good at it, like talking, which is, there's a lot more that goes into being a politician, a lot of decision making and collaboration, but being able to like talk and speak to people and come across in a certain way, that's sort of the foundation of like even trying to be a politician. So Mark Carney's like a natural, I would say. Like whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his policies or not, you got to just objectively look at the guy and be like, he seems to be pretty good at like being a politician or coming across well. I would say that. But some of the comments here on Reddit from Canadians say, what do I think of Mark Carney? He's boring. He's boring. Okay. That's not exactly what I was thinking, but it says I like boring. Oh, interesting. That's actually very, very relatable for me. As an American myself, I would, you don't have any idea how much I would love to have a boring leader. Somebody who's just like this super boring, chill person who doesn't get into all these scandals, and someone who doesn't say something crazy every week. Like, it seems like here in America, it's been so long since we've just had someone who is like really like a great representative, just a a good human? Like, I don't know, since I've been alive, I remember like Obama. He was cool. Like, again, it doesn't even matter. I'm not even talking about politics, like their policy decisions. I'm just talking about as a human representing the United States. Can't it just be like somebody normal? That's all I ask. So boring is a good way to put it. So I enjoy the fact I don't hear Mark Carney's name in the news every single day. Um, yeah, I actually really understand what they're saying here. I don't hear a lot about Mark Carney, and honestly, that's not a bad thing. When politicians are so in your face these days, especially Donald Trump, let's be honest. When I do catch an interview, he's fairly well spoken and stands up for Canadian values. That's generally like the impression I've gotten. Like I don't know a ton about Mark Carney and every single thing that he stands for, but I've seen like a fair share of him talking and doing press conferences on like YouTube highlights, and yeah, that's really accurate. I would agree, but I've always kind of wondered like what Canadians really actually, because I think when it's your country's leader, you look at it differently than everyone around the world. Like Americans look at Donald Trump in a slightly different way because he's our leader, our country voted for him. We so there is a certain like I don't know. There's just something where when it's your leader and you kind of as a resident of your country, you understand it, the best, let's say. You have a certain attitude and opinion that other people around the world, it's different. So I think it's important to listen to opinions inside your own country and hear opinions outside of your country because people from the outside looking in also offer a very, very valuable perspective, kind of a detached perspective. So, yeah, that's what I'm at the risk of rambling too much about this. I have an outsider perspective on Mark Carney in Canada. Like, I don't live in Canada. Like, what happens in Canada doesn't. It can have repercussions on me, but it doesn't directly affect my life, let's say, for the sake of argument. So I form my opinions on this stuff with that point of view. So hearing Canadians who actually have a really big stake in like your leader and what Mark Carney does, it's really interesting. And so far, it's just Canadians saying, "I like that he's just normal, nice, boring guy." Is that about right? Um, Policies aside, my biggest fear was with Polyev. Um, so this is getting a little political, but obviously, if this person voted for Carney, he had like concerns about Polyev, and people who voted for Polyev had concerns about Mark Carney. That makes logical sense. I love how boring and collected Mark Carney is. I have missed that. So, before Mark Carney was Justin Trudeau. Is that who we're comparing this to? Is that because for me, like I have to compare Donald Trump to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden, not to make this about America, but let's be honest, it's kind of the only frame of reference I have. Joe Biden was beyond boring. Like he was almost nothing. And yeah, Joe Biden took it too far, where I don't even know if he was really even likable because there was nothing there. It was just like the ultimate government face. Um, but yeah, not going into that too much. Literally the opposite of Donald Trump, the literal polar opposite. Whereas for Canada, you have Mark Carney, whereas you previously had Justin Trudeau. Everyone in this discussion seems to like the Canadians in this discussion are like, I love how boring he is. I love how boring and calm he was. Justin Trudeau like this crazy eccentric like guy? I never got that impression, but then again, I don't know much about him. I think Mark Carney is building infrastructure and stability, which isn't as loud and sexy as screaming into the void and trying to provoke pitchfork carrier, let's say, drama. So this Canadian likes that Mark Carney is just like working on very boring things. Not necessarily boring, but like boring compared to some of the stuff like Donald Trump does, which is like borderline fear mongering and like Donald Trump. I think he made it. Yeah, recently he made it illegal to burn the American flag. Now, I would never burn the American flag. I really love America where I live and my life and everything that it's given me. So I wouldn't do that. But it, one of the biggest things that Americans are supposed to be proud of is free speech and expression. And if you want to burn an American flag, like the absolute epitome of free speech would be to say, okay, you can do that. And you could do that in America until very recently, where Donald Trump made it illegal to burn an American flag, which is like, yeah, not good, actually, because it feels like kind of a slippery slope to, like, if you actually look at the government documents that came out recently, if you look this up and read the bill where you can no longer burn an American flag or you will go to jail, which is pretty crazy. Um, you could replace burning the flag with like making fun of the president. You know what I mean? Like the verbiage is very, very weird. And anyway, so I guess my point with all this was that it would be nice to have a leader who's just working on really, really boring, quote unquote, boring things. Like Mark Carney is just like building up Canada's military, right? Like reallocating the budget and trying to like build infrastructure in Canada and like create jobs and figure out the trade war. Very like boring stuff, but super important. Whereas here in America, we're like focusing on literal pointless stuff, like putting tariffs on Canada for no reason and accusing you of fentanyl, drug trafficking, and taking away free speech rights, like burning flags, which again, I don't want to burn an American flag. I would not like that. But you should have the right to do it if that's really like your opinion. Anyway, let's keep going. This is oddly, I didn't expect this, but this discussion about Mark Carney is making me very self-reflective, like reflecting a lot on what's happening here in the United States a lot, and sort of comparing it to Mark Carney, which is interesting. I didn't necessarily expect that, but yeah, I think it's good. I love having an educated, intelligent, professional person there. Yes, Mark Carney. I remember when I first tried to learn about him because I'd never heard of him before. The Canadian election. He's like very, very smart, right? He was like running banks of England or has multiple degrees. He's educated. He's professional, and yeah, again, not even talking about policy. That's the kind of person you want running your country, right? Someone who's just objectively a high IQ, smart person. Now, ideally, you also want them to believe in and fight for and represent you and the things that you want to happen in your country, of course. But I think the prerequisite to that is having someone who's just very, very smart, which in American politics, it's becoming shockingly rare to just have somebody who is really, really intelligent. Like, we so much more put an emphasis on someone who's sexy and well-spoken, someone who's hip or talks or trolls or makes memes. Like Donald Trump is very good at like being very memeable and viral. and like go on podcasts and stuff. And that's a big reason why he was elected again, among other things. But we don't have so much of a focus on electing someone who's just really smart. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm actually, in that sense, I'm jealous of Canada that you guys elected somebody who seems to be very, very intelligent and will hope, and on top of that, of course, will hopefully carry out a series of decision making that's good for Canada. Uh, well, Carney didn't immediately openly backtrack on everything he campaigned on, so he's better than average. So that's a problem a lot of politicians have in Canada too, like promising the world when they're campaigning and then not following through on any of it. Which honestly, shouldn't that be like illegal? Like I should not be. If there's anything I've learned, I shouldn't be the king of anything because I'd make it illegal for politicians to lie. You'd be drawn and quartered if you're a politician and you lie, which is probably too extreme. But the idea that politicians can like misrepresent what they're going to do and then just get elected and do whatever they want. Sure, they won't be elected again, but it's a terrifying thought. I think back in the Middle Ages, if, not to go off on this too much, but in the Middle Ages, if you were a politician or something and you didn't do a good job, you'd probably be like hanged or like chopped in half, right? Not that we should bring that back, but not Canadian. I'm American, but I'm jealous of you guys because you have a leader who actually knows how to lead a country. And he stands up to a piece of crap who runs the country I'm in. So this is an American talking, and this was one of the reasons, right, why Carney was elected, right? To be honest, because he was the elbows up, right? The guy who's going to stand up to Donald Trump. And not shockingly, he's done a decent job at that, I think. And when he visited the White House, he did tell Donald Trump to his face that Canada is not for sale, although Trump then trolled him back about that. Um, but it seems the whole Mark Carney has just run into the issue of trying to make a deal with Donald Trump, which is insanely difficult, I think, because Trump only will make a deal. Trump is very, very willing to leverage all of his advantages, all the power of the United States, and throw that weight around to hurt people, to literally hurt other countries to get what he wants. Which maybe at times can be good for the United States, but it's also very bad in hurting our relationship. So anyway, Carney was kind of voted to be the guy to make a deal with Donald Trump in the United States, and I think we've all just kind of figured out how difficult and painstakingly slow and hard it is. I don't hear about him saying something stupid on the news every 5 minutes. are we are we comparing him to Donald Trump or Justin Trudeau? I don't know with some of these comments, but a lot of these comments, so far so good. I wanted an adult, and he has been that. A lot of these comments are really interesting. It's really a lot of relief from a lot of Canadians, at least on Reddit. And if I'm going to be honest, I think Reddit is, as a website, leans more liberal. So these are probably people who voted for Mark Carney, just to be completely transparent. And they're saying, I'm just glad we have somebody who seems really put together and sane. And I'd have to say, just looking at the guy and hearing him, I would agree he does come across that way. I think Carney's heart is in it. He's clever, which is a great combination. He sees the task at hand and isn't wasting any time. He doesn't showboat. He's a selfless leader with clear vision. I have full confidence in him. Wow. Really a lot of praise. If not people also just being like, yeah, I'm just glad we have like a normal guy who seems decent. Glad to have a mature, boring, competent person. It's been a long time. Really, this is so funny because this is like exactly what I think a lot of Americans are hoping for, especially now. Like, now that it's been Trump, Biden, Trump, a lot of Americans are really just hoping for somebody freaking normal and really smart and really boring. Yeah, I actually really understand what you guys are saying now. That sounds great. So anyway, I really just wanted to hear what Canadians were sort of thinking about Mark Carney in general so far, and this actually was really relatable for me as an American. So I really enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on Mark Carney, especially if you're Canadian. That'd be awesome. Your thoughts on everything going on right now and how Mark Carney's doing and your leader, and that'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and learning things about Canadian culture I've never learned before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.